always been a big fan of Sherlock Holmes since I was a kid, and I'd always believed that there was something in there that hadn't yet been done. So when I eventually became a producer and started my own company, the first thing I decided to tackle was Sherlock Holmes. The images I saw in my head were, as I read these books, were completely different from anything I'd seen in any of the previous movies.
The more you look into Conan Doyle's book, such a rich character, such a rich world, and he and Watson and even their nemesis are just, they're such fleshed out folk.
I didn't see him as the kind of buttoned up, I would say Edwardian gentleman. Sherlock is a much more sort of modern and bohemian and complex and interesting character. You know, Conan Doyle based Sherlock Holmes on a Scottish doctor who was supposed to be able to basically look at you and tell you what's wrong with you. So in a way, Sherlock is a man who thinks so quickly that he's able to look at you and size you up.
You're engaged. The ring has gone, but the lighter skin where it once sat suggests you spent some time abroad, wearing it proudly.
What's very clear about Holmes, even in the Conan Doyle, is his humanity and his vulnerability as a person and all the issues that come with being a genius, and how uncomfortable he is in the world.
He's a bit of a weirdo, and the things that get him off are the things that frustrate most people. And the things that annoy him to no foreseeable end are the things that most people would say, well, that's commonplace, that's just the way life is.
Holmes is the kind of character who, you know, he literally does spend, between cases when he's bored, he spends 2 weeks just lying there on the sofa. And he doesn't feel bad about it. He's got that kind of slacker mentality, as well as being very, very driven when he's on a case, which I thought was really interesting. And I hope that Watson holds his own pretty well in this movie. And I think, in a way, he's the person we'd want to be in many ways.
There was so much uncovered and so much unexplored in the character. His sort of strict military training and background, and the fact that he dives headfirst into these very physical, combative, and dangerous scenarios with his partner in fighting crime, very willingly.
You know, he's definitely a ladies' man in the books. He is the writer of the stories, and so just by virtue of that, you can see his level of intellect. So I think our conception of Watson is actually a much more accurate one, and I'm rather proud of that, than what we've seen before. How it started was that I've been fascinated by another side of the Victorian life, which is the occult. And of course, Conan Doyle was as well. He was a spiritualist. He got involved in all sorts of seances and stuff like that. So I came up with a story which involved the whole notion of sort of spiritualism and the occult and all that kind of stuff. In a way, in the same way as Hound of the Baskervilles create a mystery where all this magic is presented, and part of what Holmes has to figure out is it real magic or not? And if it's not, how did he do it?
You know, his power is his brain. You know, his power is that he's able to figure things out that nobody else can see. There's a line in the movies, how did you see that? He says, I was looking for it. I mean, it's that kind of ability that Holmes sees things that nobody else sees.
Sherlock Holmes' insight into the human condition is quite extraordinary, and I'm sure that's, you know, I've been trying to figure out what it is about him that makes him so popular and why we all love him, and I think it's that, ultimately. He really understands what makes people tick, I think, in the most modern way, and in a way that applies to us as, you know, today, as much as it did back in his day.